There we go. Hello and welcome to today's live chat, which, as you can see, is coming from the room I'm in, and rather than my home, which is in a motorhome. And today I'm going to talk about the diary of Joseph Goebbels for Friday, the 11th of November, 1938. In as much as this diary actually affects Kristallnacht. Now, you may recall that I have, well, it's not my theory, but there is a theory which suggests that the commonly held belief that Hitler was unaware of Kristallnacht. The idea is that Goebbels stood completely behind it. He did it because he'd had a relationship with Lida Barova. His wife complained to Hitler. He was in Hitler's bad books. He wanted to be in Hitler's good books, so he went and caused Kristallnacht and the pogrom as a way to try and win Hitler over. I think that is the commonly held belief, which is usually, or words to that effect, which is usually used in books and the likes. However, the diary of Joseph Goebbels clearly points to something else, and I need to point out that excerpts from these diaries were not known as well. So really, the previous theory is not the fault of anyone else. It's because as history is something which progresses, information becomes available, and things which may seem obvious later it turns out that something else actually happened. So this is a normal process of investigation. So anyway, so I'm now going to read to you as I did last night. Now this is a much smaller text than yesterday. You didn't find so much to write about. So let's start. So I'll do the same as yesterday, a paragraph and then discussion. Yesterday, Müller reports on what happened in Berlin. It was really great there. Constantly new fires, but it's all right like that. So Müller, Heinrich Müller, known as Gestapo Müller, he is one of the characters who started off as being anti-Nazi, believe it or not. It sounds a bit odd when you saw, because most people know what happened to him in the end or towards the end. But at the beginning of his life, he was born in 1900, so he's the same age as Himmler. He was younger than Heydrich, who was his boss. He got a job in the political police. There's still actually political police in Germany today, and but the role of the political police was to keep an eye really on the extremists, so either Nazis or communists, and Müller volunteered in the First World War, and I think he flew a plane for the artillery, so he's an artillery spotter. Something quite unusual, but he won a number of medals. He won the Bavarian Cross, Iron Cross first and second class, and nothing. So he had in this short time he was in the army in the First World War. He had quite a distinguished career, and then he had quite a distinguished career, I would say, in the civil service, because he rose very, very quickly. In 1933, now once before we discussed when the thing on Lena Heydrich, the letter that Lena Heydrich wrote to her parents on, I think it was the 9th of March 1933, I might be wrong on the exact date, but anyway, it was when the Nazis took over the government in Munich, or the government of Bavaria. So if each state was different, Bavaria, which was the home state of National Socialism, but it was the last one to be overtaken by the National Socialists. And anyway, so in this letter, Lena Heydrich writes of how the violence that's used and what they're doing to people. She talks about how some Jewish business people were beaten up and humiliated, dragged out of their beds at night and made to walk through the streets barefoot. And the fact is that in Bavaria there were those who wanted to give up to fight back, and Müller clearly wanted to fight back. He wasn't going to allow the Nazis just to take over like this. And this probably affected his entire career, because he could be blackmailed any time. But Heydrich, who himself was somebody who had just made fun of the Nazis, it was his wife who'd been the Nazi, and because of the won't go into it now because I'm coming too much off the subject, but because of the disputes with his wife's family and the problems that he'd had with them, that he perhaps he understood the professionalism. He understood he was somebody that he could bring under his wing and who would be totally devoted. And Heydrich, and Müller was completely devoted. He was one of the participants at the Wannsee conference on the 20th of January 1942. And here we see him now. Müller reporting on what's happened in Berlin. It's really great there, and there's new fires all over. So he's seeing this as being part of government policy. He's not yet a member of the Nazi Party. He was in the SS. I think he joined the SS in 1937, if memory serves me correctly. His number was 190 something. He wasn't yet a member of the Nazi Party. He was still a professional civil servant. Anyway, so continuing with the Goebbels's, I draft an executive order on to end the action. It's enough enough for now. If we let this go on, there's a danger that a mob will appear. The synagogues burned down all over the country. The Judaism must pay heavily for this death. So Goebbels now wants to end everything. He's a bit frightened that and there have been instances of this sort of thing. Maybe not anti-Jewish, but when mobs sort of start attacking things, then they start, which the government might approve of, but then they start attacking government institutions as well. So Goebbels wants to control the situation. And he recognizes this because he recognizes that the synagogues have burned down all over the place. And so he's done what he wanted to do against the Jewish population of Germany. And when he says the Jews must pay for the death, Goebbels, whatever else, was a highly intelligent person. But does he genuinely believe that there's some plot to assassinate von Rath? Maybe he didn't know that Hitler had sent his private surgeon Karl Brandt, who then botched what would have been the life-saving operation for von Rath. Anyway, in the Osteria, I report to the Führer. He agrees with everything. His views are quite radical and aggressive. The action itself went perfectly. 17 dead, but no German property damage. Now, we know that's not true. First, and in the Osteria, I report to the Führer. The Osteria was a couple of places that Hitler used to like going to in Munich. One was the Cafe Heck. I don't know I don't think it's around anymore. I don't even know what Osteria is around anymore. But it's clear from this is he agrees with everything. So in this case, there can be no doubt that Hitler didn't know about what was happening. It is clear that Hitler is in agreement. His views are radical and aggressive, and everything went according to plan. So Hitler here is quite happily. So, with minor changes, the Führer approves of my decree concerning the end of the actions. I will issue it right away by press and radio. The Führer wants to take very sharp measures against the Jews. They will have to repair their shops themselves. The insurances will pay nothing. Then the Führer wants to gradually expropriate Jewish businesses. And give the holders papers in exchange, which we can devalue at any time. By the way, the country is already helping itself in that respect with its own actions. I'll give out appropriate secret decrees for this. We are now waiting the effects abroad. For the moment, they're still silent there, but the noise will surely come. Okay, so Hitler's now agrees that this is now the time to sort of end everything. And Goebbels will broadcast it by press and radio. Now, in this case, I think Goebbels is secretly saying that, not secretly, but he's saying that the pogrom which had happened had been put out on the radio with perhaps, I'm interpreting too much maybe, but with a view to encouraging it. Now he's going to use the same radio to put a stop to the pogrom themselves. Now, here's an interesting thing: is that he writes that the people will have to repair their own shops. The Jewish people, the Jewish victims, will have to repair their shops themselves, and insurance is not going to pay anything. This comes, I think the idea that about this, actually, I think it was believed. I can recall even reading this when I started taking interest in such things in the 1970s, that it was a meeting with Goering that had said that the insurance companies weren't going to pay anything, and Goering had actually decided this. But what this shows is that something like this had already been decided. So if this is on the Friday, the Kristallnacht being on the Wednesday, so on the 11th, so they must have made a decision on the 10th that the insurance companies weren't going to have to pay, or the money from the insurance would not be paid to the victims of the crimes, but instead to some to the government, or to wherever the money ended up, but the victims weren't going to get anything. So the idea also is to try and to force the Jewish people to leave, to expropriate Jewish businesses and give the holders papers in exchange, which can be devalued. So then once they give them sort of worthless bonds or something like this, that's the plan here. That isn't how it happened. But at the same time, they're expecting effects abroad, and before doing anything, they again further against the Jews, they want to see what reactions are going to happen abroad. At least that's the way I interpret that sentence. I might be wrong. Now, lots of people were forced to give up their businesses. And in most cases, this was just theft, and what happens? It went to Nazis, effectively, friends of friends. It was corruption that actually got this. The businesses weren't sold off the highest bidder or anything like this. If the local Nazi leader decided he wanted one of these businesses, he just took it, and there was no recourse to the courts. He could offer a tiny amount of money for it. And but the thing is, obviously, the business itself, in most cases, is going to then come crashing down, because there's nobody there who knows how to run it. I'm somewhat reminded, actually, in a case like this, as the way that Idi Amin expropriated the people from Asia, who were largely shopkeepers in Uganda in 1972, and how the flourishing society in Uganda, which existed prior to his coming to power, which was then destroyed. I think it's very similar to this. In fact, Uganda's probably even more. It was even worse for the economy than it was in Nazi Germany. Okay, continuing. Kemal Ataturk has died. A great man has passed away, mainly probably by his own lack of restraint, but I think it doesn't matter for as far as we're concerned. Turkey is therefore leaderless. So just a political comment about what's going on. In the hotel, further work. I shall send around some more orders. What I believe the action with the Jews is over for now. If not, there'll be some follow-up events. The Jews are very stupid in the end, and will have to pay for their own mistakes dearly. Okay, I still don't understand what he means by in the hotel. I think that maybe is referring to his ministry. Okay, continuing. I call Heydrich. The police report from the whole right corresponds to my information too. So everything's okay. Only in Bremen there were some unpleasant excesses, but they're insignificant in the overall big action. Heydrich is to be the liaison between the party and the police in this question. Heydrich being, of course, the head of the police, and also a party man put there by Himmler. Still working until the evening. Reports coming in from Berlin about very serious anti-Semitic riots. The people is taking action, but now it must be stopped. I issue instructions to police and party in this sense. Everything will be quiet. I think he's repeating himself now. The Führer hosts a press reception for around 400. He's very nice and gives a great speech on the meaning of and value of propaganda, the achievements of which he praises highly, and on the tasks of the press. Later sat together with the journalists for a long time. The Führer elaborates on the Czech crisis, lashes out at the cowardice of the intellectuals, speaks very openly about Hungary, discusses very clearly the English poker, and thus provides us with a great overview of the whole international situation. You will remember that the Czech land, Sudetenland, had been occupied only a few weeks earlier by Nazi Germany. Also, Hungary and Poland had taken parts of that country as well. So Hitler was still very proud of his alliance with both countries, even though he was going to attack Poland only 10 months later. All right, so he's writing this from Munich. And see, but anyway, at midnight I have to go back to Berlin. The foreign stations report objectively about the anti-Semitic actions in Germany. Now I'm going to take charge completely in Berlin. In times of crisis, one must be the boss. Only a little sleep. Berlin. So he's going back home, presumably by the night train, and he's been given the press reports. Now you can see that Hitler received regular reports from the press, as did Goebbels. It could have been, when he says that they're reporting objectively, I can only assume that he means by that they were positive, as far as he was concerned, that is, and therefore he was in a bit of an echo chamber. He was believing what he was being. They were giving him things which may have been pro-Nazi or something like that. That's the only way I can interpret that as being. And now he says he's going to take charge in Berlin. So he is not only the boss of the propaganda and Enlightenment, as it was called, but he was also the person. He was the boss in Berlin. He was the Gauleiter in Berlin. So he's now going to show them there who's boss. He couldn't do that in Munich. Munich, get my countries mixed up. He couldn't do that in Munich because he wasn't the Gauleiter there. Good. So that's it. So what I'm now going to do is let's have a look at some of the comments here. So hello to everybody here. So hello David, Annie, Anton, Jeffrey, Neela, Dave, Eddie, and Mohammed. And I thought what I'd do now is actually have a look at some of the comments for people made over the last 2 days. So on day one, hang on, that's a live chat. What's this? There it is, live chat. Sorry. To see what other people have said about this. I'm sorry, I've got the. If you have it, that's making a noise. Sorry. Right. So let's have a look at some of the comments. I just thought there was some right. Okay, David here writes, I'll miss up the positive ones, but thanks for those that you actually gave the complimentary ones. In 1923, Adolf Hitler was not a German citizen. He didn't acquire German nationality until 1932. He'd been expelled to Austria as an undesirable foreigner upon release from prison, having tried to oust the government of Bavaria. Seems like a solid ground for this measure. This would end his career in German politics, says David. Now, yes, that is absolutely true. If Hitler he should have been expelled from the country. That was the law. And he avoided this because if we look at what the judge at the trial, Reinhardt, I think was his name, or something similar, he died in 1937. And the judge said that because of Hitler's service in the First World War, he was excused from being deported. And this is largely because he agreed with what Hitler had to say. There is something quite strange, though, because Hitler pleaded guilty to treason. And you can only... I would have thought he couldn't be guilty of treason because he wasn't German. He can only be guilty of something like that, in my opinion. And And of course, he was given as another person. He was given a very light sentence for the putsch, released earlier. And he was released. He's got an incredible. Another thing that I say about, actually, he's coming off this point a bit, but about Hitler's imprisonment was something that was called fortress confinement. Now that sounds quite extreme, but this is something which is often used for traitors, and it's not just in Weimar Germany. Hugo Chavez got something equivalent when he tried to create a coup d'etat, and he got sentenced to fortress confinement, which is a bit like being in a luxury hotel. Hitler had 2 rooms. He had somebody to clean his room for him. He had a library. He had a secretariat, which was effectively he got visitors coming to him, and he could tell the prisoner who he wanted to see, who he didn't want to see. And the quality of the food that they got was something which probably some of them had never experienced anything like that in their lives. This wasn't the sort of prison sentence. And bear in mind that people were killed, people died, including police officers, because of what they did. Anyway, right. So when I come out and doing a video on that, I'll go into that in more detail. Right, and here is yesterday's comment. So what was here? Good. So I'm just want to the complimentary one. Sorry, I've got the wrong. I've opened the same thing up twice. Sorry. Part 1 and there we go. And here, okay, right. So. Other than the compliment, thanks for the clarification of Mein Kampf. Lutz would do anything to please Hitler, says Phil. And there was one quite funny one here. I've got 2 funny ones here. First comment here is, don't see no reason to see you putting yourself in the video. Well, as it's a live broadcast, I can't see what else I can do. And here's the best one. Headline is lie and clickbait. This video does not discuss Kristallnacht. Well, there you go. I thought I did mention it in yesterday's video, but it would seem that I didn't. Okay, good. So, was there something else I wanted to say? Oh, yes, I think that's about it now. So, well, thanks very much here for that. So tomorrow I've got a video on Blöbel. What's his name? Paul Blöbel, who was head of the Einsatzgruppe, and he was then head of Sonderkommando. And that will, and it's the first part and of a 3 or maybe 4 parts. I haven't finished it yet, so I don't know. Biography of Paul Blöbel. So that'll be on tomorrow. That's Saturday. I don't know if I'll do a video on Saturday. I certainly won't do one on Sunday because I'm flying out on the Monday. So I mightn't be around for some time. I like to do because I've got a trade fair in Stuttgart next week. So I'll be concentrating on the state. I've got to concentrate on the day job. So I'll be doing that. But anyway, so thanks very much everybody who was here. Are you back in the UK at the moment? Asked Dave. Yes, Dave. Well, I am now. I've been here for 2 months. It's now the 4th of January. I've been here since the 4th of November. And anyway, so I may do another live, but I don't think I will. There'd only be one that'll be on Saturday. The thing is, I do want to go through some of the videos I did earlier, because some of them are particularly ones related to the post-war fate of a couple of characters. Okay, thanks very much for watching. I will do a documentary on this as well, style thing. Of course, I won't be saying anything new. It's just that documentary style ones take much longer to actually do. Thanks, Mohammed. Thanks, Neela, Dave. Everybody who was here today, thank you. And so all the best from me, and bye for now. Bye.